It's Monday morning. Your alarm goes off. You lie there for a second and think, I hate my job. Congratulations. You are part of a tradition that is at least 4,000 years old. Because around 1900 BCE in Egypt, a man sat down and wrote what might be the oldest surviving list of terrible jobs. He went through them one at a time. He described exactly how each one wrecks your body, ruins your clothes, and shortens your life. And people kept copying that list for centuries, so we still have it today. Which means we can actually answer the question, what was the worst job in the Bronze Age? We have their own rankings, their own complaints, and their own skeletons to check the claims against. So let's run the countdown. And stick around for the twist at the end, because the man who wrote the list had a very specific reason for writing it, and it changes everything about how you should read it. First, some ground rules. The Bronze Age is a world of cities. Babylon, Thebes, Memphis. Cities mean specialization. In one archive from the Sumerian city of Lagash, accountants recorded around 26,700 entries of people's job titles. 47 plowmen, listed by name. 70 fishermen. 4,000 years later, we know their org chart better than some modern companies know their own. And most of those jobs paid the same way. Rations, grain, oil, beer, cloth, handed out by the temple or the palace. Your job title decided the size of the sack. A foreman drew more than a hauler. A skilled weaver drew more than the woman grinding grain beside her. The accountants tracked it all down to the liter of barley, which is exactly why those 26,000 job titles survive. Every title was a line in a payroll, so when you asked which job was worst, you were really asking a very modern question. What am I getting for what this is costing me? One more thing the payroll tells us. The people at the bottom of it, the haulers, the grinders, the canal crews, drew rations calculated to keep a body working and not much more. The Bronze Age had done the arithmetic on its own workforce. Keep that in mind as the countdown gets vivid. None of this was a secret to the people running the system. Now, the list. Your guide is a scribe called Dua Keti. He wrote his rankings as advice to his son, Pepi, while sailing the boy to school. And he pulled 0 punches. Say you're the potter. You spend your working life in a mud pit, and the air you breathe comes straight out of the kiln. Your clothes are stiff with dried clay. Dua Keti's verdict, in his own words, the potter is already underground but still among the living. You are in effect being fired along with your pots. Or you're the gardener. You carry a yoke every day until your shoulders age ahead of you, and there's a blister on your neck. The text mentions the blister. The text mentions that it oozes. Mornings you water the leeks, evenings you stand in the mire, and the job, quote, works you until you die more than in any other profession. The blacksmith crouches at the mouth of his furnace until his fingers look like crocodile claws. Speaking of crocodiles, if you're the washerman, your shift starts at the river. So does the crocodile's day. Your workplace and their dining room are the same stretch of bank. And in Dua Keti's script, there's a scene of you explaining this to your kids. Father is going down to the water again. The birdcatcher works the same river, and the text says fear has worn him down so completely that when someone shouts, crocodiles surfacing, he barely reacts. The field laborer might be the quiet winner of the list. His fingers have turned into sores from carrying loads. His voice, says the text, rises higher than the birds from complaining. He works land that isn't his under a supervisor he can't refuse. And if he ever gets home at all, he arrives, in Dua Keti's words, in utter poverty, too worn down to walk. Even the jobs that sound safe get demolished. The barber owns his own hands and his own razor. No kiln, no crocodiles, and Dua Keti still finds the misery. The man shaves until nightfall and then walks street to street, begging for chins. Self-employment, Bronze Age edition, no boss, and no guarantee anyone needs you tomorrow. The sandal maker spends his life biting into leather to work it, and the leather is treated in ways that make him smell, according to the text, like a corpse. And that detail points at a job the list only brushes past: the tanner. Turning a raw animal skin into leather takes chemistry, and the tanner's chemistry was whatever a city produced in bulk for free, which meant urine, to strip the hair from the hides, and dung, worked in by hand to soften them, ammonia and enzymes, doing real industrial work, collected by the jarful from the neighbors. The process worked, the smell was legendary, and the sandal maker inherited the results with his teeth. So who wins? Who had the worst job? Here's where it gets interesting, because worst splits into categories, and the Bronze Age had a champion in each one. Worst for your body, the potter, the gardener, and the field laborer, in a three-way tie the skeletons can judge. At Deir el-Medina, the Egyptian village where the royal tomb builders lived, archaeologists studied the workers' remains. Their knees and ankles show far more arthritis than other Egyptian working populations. One man's mummy shows he kept working through a bone infection that was eating him from the inside, and these were the elite craftsmen, the good jobs. Worst for your dignity, the washerman, by unanimous ancient decision, with the barber's door-to-door chin hunt close behind. Worst because you had no choice. This one belongs to Mesopotamia. Babylonian states ran on corvée. Mandatory labor you owed the crown. When the canals silted up, and in Mesopotamia the canals were always silting up, someone had to stand in the muck and dig them out. If your name came up, that someone was you, and refusing wasn't on the menu. The records show people dodging the duty anyway, which tells you everything about how the muck smelled from up close. And worst in the sense of highest stakes. Consider the tenant farmer under Hammurabi's laws. A steward who stole the seed or the rations entrusted to him faced a penalty written on the books, losing his fingers. There were Bronze Age jobs where the tools could take your hand and Bronze Age jobs where the law could. Now, the part of this that deserves suspicion. Everything on Dua Khedi's list is vivid, specific, and one-sided. He never mentions that the potter's work was skilled, or that craftsmen inside the temple system drew steady rations while farmers gambled everything on the flood. He never mentions that the tomb builders of Deir el-Medina, arthritis and all, received something astonishing for the period: paid sick days, and access to a physician whose rations the state covered. The earliest documented government healthcare we know of went to men with some of the hardest jobs in Egypt. The system knew exactly what the work cost, and priced it in. So why is the list so relentlessly grim? Look at who wrote it, a scribe. Look at where it survived, in schools, copied out by scribal students, over and over for hundreds of years. Look at the one profession that escapes the list unscathed. In Dua Khedi's words, there is no profession free of a boss except the scribe. He is the boss. The oldest worst jobs list in the world is an advertisement. A father scaring his son straight on the boat ride to school. Master writing, Peppy, or the crocodiles in the kiln are waiting. Scribal school itself was no picnic. A Sumerian student's diary from the same era describes being caned for lateness, caned for sloppy copying, caned for talking, until his father fixed the problem the traditional way by bribing the teacher. But it beat the alternatives, and every student copying out Dua Khedi's countdown knew it. The list survived because it worked, which leaves one last irony, and it's the reason this video exists at all. Every job on the countdown, the potter, the gardener, the washerman, the bird catcher, left almost nothing behind in their own words. The complaints we have, the rankings we have, the vivid, oozing details we have, all of it comes through the hands of scribes. The only Bronze Age workers who could write down what work was like were the ones who had escaped the list. So what was the worst job in the Bronze Age? By their own reckoning, something in the mud, by the kiln, or the canal, or the crocodile water, aging you faster than the years. By ours, with the skeletons on the table, nearly all of it was harder on a human body than almost anything most of us will ever wake up dreading. But the fact that we can ask the question and hear them answer it in their own voices 4,000 years later, that was the work of the one profession that ranked itself first. And honestly, he wasn't wrong.